Hi, welcome to Unspoken History. My name is Keisha. Thank you for joining me today. Today I want to talk about Prince Hall and Benjamin Banneker. So before I always believed that Benjamin Banneker was the first recorded Freemason, Prince Hall version of Freemasons in America. And then this other name comes up called Prince Hall that's not associated with Benjamin Banneker. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to look through that story and see how Benjamin Banneker's story was covered for a long time. And then this story about Prince Hall, it came out because the Black Masons are not going to just allow their history just to be totally gone. So they came up with this character they call Prince Hall. But there were six Prince Halls at the same time. They were all in the, I think that was the Revolutionary War, but there were six of them with the same name, Prince Hall. So anyway, let's look at that story. So this is a picture of, like, I think there's only three pictures that I can find that say that they're Prince Hall. Um, So let's read a little bit of this because it's really interesting that they don't know anything about this person. Okay, Prince Hall, 1735, between 1735 and 1738. They don't know when he was born. He died in December 7th, 1807. Now, also, Benjamin Banneker was born in 1731, I think it was, and he died in 1806. Interesting. Was an American abolitionist and leader in the free black community in Boston. He founded Prince Hall Freemasonry and lobbied for education rights in African American children. Education rights for African American children. He was also active in the Back to Africa movement. You don't say. Okay, so let's go down here to early life because this is just some stuff they made up. To me, it's my personal opinion. Okay, so it says there is confusion about his birth year, place of birth, parents, and marriages. So what do you know? You don't know when he was born. You don't know where he was born. You don't know who his parents are, and you don't know nothing about his marriages. But you know he started the Freemasons and stop it. Anyway, partly because there were numerous Prince Halls during this period. Early life, Hall was born between 1735 and 1738. His place of birth and parents are also unclear. Hall mentioned in his writings that New England was his homeland. The Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, in its proceedings of 1906, opted for 1738. So they just chose a date. Okay, we'll take that one. 1738. Yeah, that sounds good. Relying on a letter from Reverend Jeremy Belknap, a founder of the Massachusetts Historical Society, Hall's birthday is traditionally celebrated on September 17th. Sorry, September 14th. Hall's early years are unclear. Like I said, these people, these colonists kept really, really good records. And the people before them kept really, really good records. But don't nobody know who this man is. And he supposedly started the Prince Hall Freemasons in America. That is the black version of, they're all the same. To try to say that these are just for the black, they're all the same. And I'm gonna show that in this little segment that they're all brothers. Hall was enslaved. Of course he was because he's brown, he's black, right? So we can't say anything else. But every time we see an accomplishment of a black person, they were formerly enslaved. Okay, how come you don't say that about the white indentured servants? White people were indentured. Abraham Lincoln was an indentured servant. Don't nobody say former slave to them. Okay, to Boston Tanner William Hall. So this Boston Tanner William Hall must have had a bunch of people that he named Hall, and their first name was Prince. And by 1770 was a free, literate man, mm, mm, mm. and had been always accounted as a free man. So how was he accounted as a free man if he was somebody's slave? Stop. It was through William Hall that Prince learned how to process and dress leather. Inside Prince Hall's Inside Prince Hall, author and historian David L. Gray states that he was unable to find an official historical record of the manumission of his being free from slavery. Hall was unable to read and write and may have been self-taught or may have had. So basically, all of this is speculation. Speculation, speculation, speculation. Hall encouraged enslaved and freed blacks to serve in the American colonial military. He believed that if blacks were involved in founding the new nation, it would aid in attending freedom for all blacks. Hall proposed that the Massachusetts Committee of Safety allow blacks to join the military. He and fellow supporters petitioned compared the intolerable acts with the enslavement of blacks. Their proposal was declined. Okay, all right. So Hall was interested in the Masonic fraternity because Freemasonry was founded on liberty. Now, if Hall didn't write this and they don't have any information about this person, they're just making it up, right? We got to have a time for Freemasonry to start in America because blacks were Freemasons back in the day, early 1700s, probably 1600s. Because this is the 1700s when Benjamin Banneker and this so-called Prince Hall was born. So anyway, then let me read this other thing on Prince Hall right here. It's basically the same information. Ain't nobody got nothing different. The remarkable story of Prince Hall, the black founding father, excuse me, the black founding father history almost forgot. They still forgot. They ain't got no information. Not even before America became a sovereign nation, a freed slave named Prince Hall fought for the emancipation of his people in Boston. All right, throughout the 1770s, Prince Hall fought tirelessly for the rights of black people in America, but Benjamin Banneker did the same thing. Known today as the Black Founding Father. Now, the Black Founding Father, I'm going to show you when we look at Benjamin Banneker, it's Benjamin Banneker. He's there with uh, Thomas Jefferson and some other people. He's the one that's on the murals, not this other person. So to try to separate the stories, because we had black Masons that helped design, that helped put together this whole country. It wasn't just white Masonics, it was black Masonics and white Masonics. But that was left out for a long time. We thought it was just white Masonics. And then Benjamin Banneker comes up, and then, oh, well, he wasn't a Masonic until recently because now they got they got it's like a dedication mural to Masonic history. And guess who's there? Good old Benjamin Banneker, but no Prince Hall. All right. So, again, very scarce amount of pictures. Although he faced a state legislature that rejected most of his petitions, Hall continued to fight and encourage free black people to follow in his steps. You don't even have a okay. My brethren, Hall declared, let us not be cast down under these and many other abuses we at present labor under, for the darkest is before the break of day. Okay, so and there you have it. Oh yeah, let me say this part too. They said that Prince Hall joined the Revolutionary War, because the British was promising freedom, and everybody would fight for us, and we'll give you your freedom. Okay, it says born a slave in Boston around 1735 or 1738 or 1736 or 1737. Though some sources claim he was born in Barbados or the West Indies, Prince Hall was owned by a leather craftsman named William Hall. After decades of bondage, he finally earned his freedom, and then very soon after was a very literate, smart person starting a high order of Masonics. I don't think so, but anyway. So Benjamin Banneker. Now the first thing I want to show, though, I want to show something else. Let's show the picture. No, the picture of him with helping design the area that we call Washington, D.C. The initiated eye Freemasonry and the Architecture of Washington, D.C. Now, if you notice over there when we were reading about Prince Hall, they said he was the founding father. He's not listed here. It says the National Heritage Museum's new exhibit the Initiated Eye, Secret Symbol, Freemasonry, and the Architecture of Washington, D.C. explores the same topic, bringing a little bit of Washington to Lexington, Massachusetts. I always say that wrong, Massachusetts. The Initiated Eye presented 21 oil paintings by Peter Waddell based on the architecture of Washington, D.C., and the role that our founding fathers and prominent citizens, many of whom were Freemasons, played in establishing the layout and design of the city. Now, Benjamin Banneker had made it to the status of 33rd degree Mason, which is how he made it into the Scottish Rite, or he wouldn't be here. It says the exhibition is supplemented with approximately 40 objects from the National Heritage Museum's collection. The paintings and objects explain and um, demystify Freemasonry for those who are unfamiliar, while also encouraging Masons and those who have read books like The Lost Symbol to look closer. The painting shown here depicts a meeting between President George Washington and surveyor Andrew Ellicott and Benjamin Banneker. Congress designated the location of the new capital on January 24, 1791. Ellicott and Banneker surveyed the 10-mile square tract of land and produced a base map of the area. In the painting, a brazier warm, a brazier warm in early spring day in the tent filled with surveying instruments and Masonic artifacts. Okay, so I'm gonna have to show another picture of Banneker with these artifacts. Um, in the painting, okay, it says the terrestrial and celestial globes symbolize the universality, the what universality of Freemasonry. I thought it said universality. Universality. It does say that. Okay, of Freemasonry. Okay, so let's read over here. Okay, so for Benjamin Banneker, okay, so here's that picture I was talking about. You see this thing right here? You don't get that unless you make it to a certain degree in Masonry. And Benjamin Banneker was the first recorded Black Freemason, although this is an old order, go all the way back to the King of Babylon. This is not new. This order of Freemasonry, this craftsmen, these master craftsmen. What are they crafting in? Okay, so November 9th, 1731, to October 19, 1806, was an American naturalist, mathematician, astronomer, and almanac author, a landowner. He also worked as a surveyor and a farmer. Born in Baltimore, um, where was that? Was it Boston? Still the same area. Baltimore County, Maryland, to be to a free African American mother and a father who had formerly been enslaved. Banneker had little or no formal education and was largely self-taught. Always got to say the same thing. How do you self-teach yourself when you don't know nothing? You don't know nothing about the lettering, nothing about how they pronounce them. Anyway, but he was self-taught, taught himself how to read English back in the 1700s. Okay. He became known for assisting Major Andrew Elliott in a survey. So, you know what I think? I think that Elliott needed Banneker in order to finish this survey. Because how come he just didn't go by himself? Why he had to go get Banneker? He had to go get Banneker to help him with this. In a survey that established the original borders of the District of Columbia, the federal capital district of the United States. Banneker's knowledge of astronomy helped him author a commercially successful series of almanacs. He corresponded with Thomas Jefferson on the topic of slavery and racial equality. See, same thing as Prince Hall. Abolitionists and advocates for racial equality promoted and praised Banneker's work. Okay, let me read that again. He corresponded with Thomas Jefferson on the topics of slavery and racial equality. Abolitionists and advocates of racial equality promoted and praised Banneker's work. Although a fire on the day of Banneker's funeral destroyed many of his papers and belongings, one of his journals and several of his remaining artifacts survived. So isn't that interesting? On the day of his funeral, while they out at his funeral, his house burns down, along with the clock that had been keeping time for 50 years. I don't know what you call it, but I call it magical. Banneker became a folk hero after his death, leading to many accounts of his life being exaggerated or embellished. The names of parks, schools, and streets commemorate him and his works, and do other tributes. So there are schools named after him. There are parks named after him. National parks. A lot of stuff is named after Benjamin Banneker because he's one of the founding fathers. Banneker, not this Prince Hall person that is elusive. That don't nobody know who he is, where he was born, when he was born, who his mom is, who his daddy. Stop it. If you don't know his mom and his daddy, how you know he was a slave? Banneker was born on November 9th in Baltimore County to Mary Banneker. Now, if his mother was an American, indigenous American woman, you're supposed to keep your mother's name. You're supposed to keep your mother's name so that you can connect yourself back to who your family is. To Mary Banneker, a free black woman, and Robert, a free slave from Guinea. Okay, who died in 1759. There are two conflicting accounts of Banneker's family history. Banneker himself and his earliest biographers described him as having only African ancestry, of course, because his mother would be a Negro and his father was from Guinea. But in the twisted version, his mother being an indigenous woman, they're gonna slap some white skin on her face and say she was, these new Native Americans. There are two conflicting accounts of Banneker's family history. Banneker himself and his earliest biographer describes him as having only African ancestry. None of Banneker's surviving papers describe a white ancestor or identify the name of his grandmother. However, two lines of later research both suggest that Banneker's mother was a daughter of a white woman and African slave. Now, when I was doing the video about the black slave owners, one of the things that was tried to portray these slave owners, they were always mulatto. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Because then if they were lighter skinned, then it's like, well, they were light skinned. So, white people said it was okay. No, dodge the hijack. Because that's not, no, they were not all, but that's what American history will tell us. All of the people down in Louisiana, they were all mulatto. All of the people in North Carolina and South Carolina and all of the people that had slaves, they were mostly mulatto. They were mostly had one white parent. No, they didn't. All right. However, two lines of later research both suggest that Banneker's mother was the daughter of a white woman and an African slave. Although they differ as to whether the Banneker surname came from his mother or father, or the origin of his name, which could be from Banneker, a small village in the present-day Clay District of Bombi County in northwestern Liberia, that had once participated in the African slave trade, or Banneker, the home of the Vai people who have lived there since about 1500 when they left the Mali Empire. Okay. So could his mother have been a part of the Mali Empire or his father? I mean, maybe. Because this word Banneker, but then if his mother was an indigenous American and her name was Banneker, okay, we don't have to try to then associate the Banneker or the Banneker name with somewhere in Africa. But that's what they're trying to do, connect it to, connect the sound, this Banneker word connected with Banneker so that it can then be connected to Liberia or somewhere else in Africa. In 1737, I don't have a problem with people, and I love people everywhere. I got many, 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 many people. I don't care where they're from. If we're friends, we're friends. If have things in common, we have things in common. In 1737, when he was 6, Banneker was named on the deed of his family's, hear this, 100 acres, 100-acre farm in the Pat, Pat, Patapsco, in the Patapsco Valley in rural Baltimore County. When he was 6 years old, his family had 100 acres. In 1737. In 1791, a letter written stated that Banneker's parents had sent him to an obscure school where he learned reading, writing, and arithmetic as far as double position. Okay, as far as double position in contrast. Unverified accounts. Okay, so 1791, when was that first school? Supposedly the first HBCU was in 1837. Benjamin Banneker went to school in the 1700s, in the obscure school. Okay, where? Which school? In contrast, unverified accounts first appeared in books published more than 140 years after Banneker's death suggest that, as a young teenager, Banneker met and befriended Peter. So you see how we got to keep on adding something in there. Well, he met this Quaker, and the Quaker taught him how to read. The man's family was prominent. They had 100 acres in 1791. Okay. Befriends Peter Heinrich, a Quaker who later established a school near the Banneker family farm. These accounts state that Heinrich shared his personal library and provided Banneker with his only classroom. Stops. Reading this stuff sometimes make me upset. With his only classroom instructions. Banneker's former education, if any, presumably ended when he was old enough to help his family on the farm. Oh boy, oh boy. All right. It says around 1753, at about the age of 21, Banneker reportedly completed a wooden clock that struck on the hour for 50 years because the clock didn't stop striking on the hour until it burned down. He appeared to have modeled his clock form from a borrowed pocket watch by carving each piece to scale. The clock continued to work until his death. After his father died in 1759, Banneker lived with his mother and sisters. Excuse me. Records indicate that in 1768 and 1773, he was living in Baltimore. In 1772, brothers Andrew Ellicott and John Ellicott and Joseph Ellicott moved from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and bought land along the Patapsco Falls near Banneker's farm, on which to conduct grist mills, around which the village of Ellicott Mills. Okay, so they moved themselves close to Banneker. All right, and they were both surveyors and astronomers or whatever. So when it was time for him to be called to Washington to help survey Washington, D.C., he brought Banneker with him because he knew where the knowledge was coming from. In 1790, Banneker prepared an ephemeris for 1791. I don't even know what an ephemeris is. Let me see. In astronomy, a celestial navigation, an ephemeris is a book with tables that gives the trajectory of naturally occurring astronomical objects and artificial satellites in the sky, i.e., the position over time. Historically, positions were given as printed tables of value. Huh. So he could tell you when things were going to move and how far they were going to move in the celestial bodies. Okay. It says, this, in early 1791, U.S. Secretary of State, did I miss something? During the following year, Banneker said, oh, yeah, I did. Okay, the Ellicotts were Quakers who held the same views as on racial equality as did many of their faith. Banneker studied the mills and became acquainted with their proprietors. In 1788, George Ellicott, a son of Andrew Ellicott, loaned Banneker books. There we go again. and equipment to begin a more formal study of astronomy. During the following year, Banneker sent George, excuse me, his work calculating the solar eclipses. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm. So this is why I believe that Banneker was the first Prince Hall Freemason, and that he is the starter of Freemasonry for Black people in America. But it really doesn't matter, because as we're going to see, a brother is a brother. Um, let's see here. Okay, so this is Banneker. This is supposed to be like the first lodge dedicated to Benjamin Banneker. It says a brief history of Banneker Lodge 3. It was, man, this is so jumbled together. It's hard to read, but anyway. Uh, let's see where I wanted to read. Okay, it says um, one of the oldest and most progressive institutions of African American influences calls the Garden City home. Banneker Lodge number 3, Free and Accepted Masons, Prince Hall affiliate, was chartered here in Augusta, Georgia on December 3rd, 1866. Now, this is way after Banneker had passed away, 60 years. This lodge was originally chartered under the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania as Banneker Lodge number 38, A&M, named in honor of Benjamin Banneker, a scientist, surveyor, and civil engineer. Well, he was more than that. He was a scientist, an astronomer, and all kinds of stuff. A farmer. Banneker Lodge number 3, Free and Accepted Masons, hold the distinction of being one of the mother lodges of Prince Hall Masonry in Georgia. Banneker Lodge number 3, Free and Accepted Masons, together with both Eureka Lodge number 1 and Hilton Lodge number 2 of Savannah, both Free and Accepted Masons, met and organized the most worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Georgia on June 24th, 1870. J.M. Sims serves as the first Grand Master of the jurisdiction. Banneker Lodge number 3, Free and Accepted Masons, has met regularly since 1866, contributing in large measure to marvelous growth of Masonry in the state of Georgia for a number of years. Banneker was the only Masonic lodge of Black Freemasons in this section of the state. At the turn of the century, many lodges would grow from the influence of Banneker Lodge number 3, Free and Accepted Masons. Augusta became the home of 5 Prince Hall Masonic lodges. Banneker number 3, um, Free and Accepted Mason. Why do I have to say that every time? New Era Lodge 103, 107, Free and Accepted Masons. Adelphia Lodge 232, Free and Accepted Masons. Jewel Lodge 275, Free and Accepted Masons. And T.C. Walker Lodge. These lodges flourished during the early part of the century outside the church. Blacks didn't have many social outlets. These lodges became the leading cultural institution for citizens who were still haunted by the ghost of slavery. Okay. It says, what do I want to read here? Um, okay, members of the reinstated New Lodge Free and Accepted. Thus, it is still operating today, being named after Benjamin Banneker. It is only fitting that Banneker Lodge number 3, Free and Accepted Masons, is home to some of Augusta's greatest men. The existence and usefulness of Banneker Lodge number 3 has been a telling factor in shaping the lives of many useful citizens in this community. James G. Snowden, R.L. Newsom, William Bearfield, and Reverend George Dwelly contributed largely to Banneker's prestige. Turn my ringer off. Um, so talking about these now, they call themselves worshipful masters. I was um, a part of the Eastern Stars for a little bit, and you know, just because I'm curious and nosy, and you know, it was something to do. All right, I have friends there, and we were doing stuff together, doing outreach, doing community service and stuff like that. Okay, but you have to believe in God. But then after you get to a certain degree, or you get voted into whatever, then we calling you worshipful master. Really? We calling you master? But anyway, um, It says the Grand Lodge has always labored unselfishly for the good of the order and have never permitted selfish motives to stand in the way of the general welfare of Georgia. Not a single instance will reveal that her members have caused the horizon of Freemasonry to be cloudy by unworthy and unwise actions. As in the past, even so in the present, her members are ever alert and active in rendering unselfishly their assistance to the shaping of policy and general welfare of the order. Oh, okay, I thought y'all was working for the people. Anyway, okay, so that is why I kind of believe that Benjamin Banneker was the one that started this thing. He was the one that was the first recorded because he's part of the founding fathers. So this other Prince Hall person, they just wanted to separate this black person from being a part of the founding fathers, and then just threw it into obscurity by saying, "Oh, his name was Prince Hall. He started the Prince Hall Masons." There was six Prince. Wait, count the one that they say started the Masons. 7 Prince Halls. And if you don't know nothing about this one, how do you know that it wasn't one of the other ones? Anyway, I was reading in what was I reading at? About Nebuchadnezzar. Was it Ezekiel? Let me see. I think it was Ezekiel. Yeah. Ezekiel is it 21, I think. Uh yeah, I think it's Ezekiel 21. Let me see. Over here. It says for the king of Babylon. Okay, this is Ezekiel 21 20. Verse 21. For the king of Babylon stood at the parting of the way, at the head of the two ways, to use divination. He made his arrows bright. He consulted with images. He looked in the liver. At his right hand was the divination for Jerusalem, to appoint captains, to open the mouth in the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to appoint battering rams against the gates, to cast them out, and to build a fort. And it shall be unto them as a false divination in their sight, to them that have sworn oaths. So if they had been a part of the same order that Nebuchadnezzar was a part of, then they could see that this was a divination. And so since they had sworn that oath along with everybody else that was a part of this order, they knew that this was something from that order. But then the Lord said, because of your transgression, you still going in. You still going. You're not going to be regarded as a brother this time. Your sins is going to be going to appear, and you're going to be taken along with everybody else that Nebuchadnezzar is coming to take. But so this is the universal co-masonry. So this is about masonry, about the history of masonry, you know, all of that, right? Nebuchadnezzar is right there because Nebuchadnezzar was part of the master craftsman. About 630 years before Christ, the empire and city of Babylon were conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. The king of the Chaldeans, a nomadic race who, descending from their homes in the Caucasus Mountains, had overwhelmed the country of southern Asia. Nebuchadnezzar was engaged during his whole reign in wars of conquest. Among other nations which fell beneath his victorious arms was Judea, whose king Jehoiakim was slain by Nebuchadnezzar, and his son Jehoiachin ascended the Jewish throne. After a reign of 3 years, he was deposed by Nebuchadnezzar, and his kingdom given to his uncle Zedekiah, a monarch distinguished for his vices. For his vices, I wonder what those were. Having repeatedly rebelled against the Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar repaired to Jerusalem, and after a siege of 18 months, reduced it. The city was leveled with the ground, the temple pillaged and burned, and the inhabitants carried away to Babylon. These events are commemorated in the first section of the English and American Royal Ark system. Okay, so the Encyclopedia Masonica exists to preserve the wealth of information that has been generated over the centuries by numerous Masonic authors. It's right here too. Well, the Bible tells you that Nebuchadnezzar wasn't some type of craftsman. because he was doing some type of craft against Jerusalem and other people he was trying to conquer. Okay, so there is that with Nebuchadnezzar, and then let me move over to the ancient mystic Oriental Masonry. And I read some of this before when I was reading about America being Egypt, but this right here talks about the Brotherhood. Talks about the Brotherhood. Okay, so let me read this. It's published in republished in 1969. Original publishing was 1909, I think it was. In placing the present work before the public, I have no apology whatever to offer, and this for several reasons. First, because I have been ordered to prepare it, and second, because much of what I herein give is not new, for the simple reason that there can be nothing new in Masonry. True, many of things, especially what concerns mystic Masonry, has not been given to a profane people, but this is not to say that it is new, for it is not. I know that the present work will stand unchallenged as to the truths it contains, and for this reason that I quote from the highest Masonic authority in the world, and that which concerns mystic Masonry comes direct from him who knows and who has no superior in this work. I also know that I will not be accused of stealing, for the very good reason that I give credit for every single quotation, unless it was changed. With these facts before me, I can feel well satisfied to let it go forward. There are several reasons why this book should go before the people, and especially before Masons themselves. Too little is known by my brother Masons concerning that order to which they have the honor to belong, but which some of them do not honor, and that present work prepared for the highest from the highest authorities will give them some idea of what the underlying principles of their teachings is. It has also been necessary to let the world know that mystic Masonry exists and has existed for many years, although not always under that name. Not much can be said concerning the order for the reason that even its degrees may not become known to the profane world. Craft masons can learn all they desire concerning it, provided they are willing to pay the price, not in current coin, but in their duty and in their work. Initiation is not what is generally supposed to be. All masons know what ceremonial initiations is, but this is simply the outward symbol of the inner work. A mason who has the 3 degrees may think that he has all that he can excuse me. A mason who has the 3 degrees may think that he has all that he can be had, but little does he know of that inner work, that grand and supreme initiation which is possible for those who truly desire it. Thousands of good men take the letter for the spirit, and it is in doing this where the misunderstanding begins. Nothing new can come from Masonry, but there is a world of truth in Masonry that the vast majority knowing nothing whatever about, and it is for this reason that the present work is placed before the public and especially before all brother Masons. It is sent forth in such a manner that it cannot be denied, for as stated before, it is from the highest authority among all Masons. As regard to the true initiation, I will quote from the work of that master Mason, Dr. J.D. Buck, in which he says, initiation and regeneration are synonymous terms. The ritual of Freemasonry is based on this natural law. The ceremony of initiation illustrates at every step this principle, and if the results attained is a possession rather than a regeneration, it is, in the great majority of cases, the principle remains nonetheless true. The mere inculcation of moral principles or lessons in ethics and their symbolic illustrations and dramatic representations are by no means in vain. These appeal to the conscious and moral sense in every man, and no man has ever been made worse by the lessons of the lodge. By these rights and benefits, the Freemason is above all men in our so-called modern civilization. The nearest to the ancient wisdom, he has possessed the territory in which lie conceal the crown jewels of wisdom. He himself he may content himself, if he will, by merely turning over the sod and gathering only a crop of husk or stubble. He may dig deeper and find not only the keystone of the ark of the covenant, the scroll, or the law, but using the spirit, concealed in the wings of the cherubim, he may rise untrampled by the rubbish of the temple, and meeting Elohim face to face, learn also to say, I am that I am. Oh boy. So they thinking, that they're God. Does this read like a rhapsody? And are the landmarks, traditions, and glyphics of Freemasonry nothing more? And again, the universal science and sublime philosophy once taught in the greater mysteries of Egypt, Chaldea, Persia, and India, and among many other nations of antiquity, is a dead letter in modern Freemasonry. The intelligent Mason, however, should be the last person in the world to deny that such wisdom once existed, for the simple reason the whole superstructure of Masonry is built upon the traditions of its existence, and its rituals serve as its living monument. Proficiency in the preceding degree is everywhere made a reason for advancement in Masonry. So basically, what he's saying is that we got this from the ancients. It has not changed since the beginning of time, since they first started it. Okay, there is in here in the works of nature. It talks about it doesn't matter who they are; they're all brothers if they're Mason. What left at the okay? Um, let's see. It says in a work of this nature, not too much can be said as regards to supreme initiation and those who may be truly initiated. I will refer to the Rosicrucians, their teachings, and to the philosophy of fire, both of which contain chapters on the true initiation. 99 Masons out of every 100 would laugh at the occult science, and yet, were it not for the occult fraternities, Masonry could never have existed. The secret doctrine was the universal diffused religion of the ancient and prehistoric world. Proof of its diffusion, authentic records of its history, and complete chain of documents showing its character and presence in every land, together with the teachings of all its great adepts, exist to this day in the secret crypts of libraries belonging to the occult fraternities. The Rosicrucian fraternity, more than any other, is to be thanked for keeping the secret and sacred writings intact. So they have the information from way back when. That's why I say it's quite interesting that they don't know anything about this so-called Prince Hall person. So anyway, let me go down here to let me see if I can find where he was talking about. They are all ignorant perversions of the original doctrine. Okay. Um, you cannot find that his teaching. Okay, boldly do I claim that the doctrine does not make Christians, but it does make criminals. Hold on. What are you talking about? All right. In the early church, as in the secret doctrine, there was not one Christ for the whole world, but a potential Christ in every man. And therefore, they're trying to. So, this thing is, if it was something that was for everyone, then that would be something that was Christ like or God like to me. But since you have to be a special person, meet special requirements in order to get into this organization, and then you can become like Christ. Okay. But anyway, it says Masonry does not teach salvation by faith, nor the vicarious atonement. Go through its degrees, study the history as taught by its greatest masters, and you cannot find that it teaches this doctrine. Boldly do I claim that this doctrine does not make Christians, but it does make criminals. Ooh. The reason for this plan, all the ancient mysteries had the true doctrine, and so had the early Christians. Masonry, before it was contaminated by the principles of Loyola, the Jesuits, excuse me, of Loyola, the Jesuits, had it also. It is for Masons to bring out the good and the true from the rubbish, says Dr. Brother Buck again. Humanity in toto is the only personal God. The Christos is the realization or perfection of this divine persona. No, but anyway, that's what they believe. Um, let's see. The idea of universal. Okay, we have brought the same selfishness into our religion that we indulge in regard to our other possessions, such as wife and children, and houses and land and country, and the same partisan spirit as in our politics, and this more than anything else appears to justify selfishness in general, militants against the brotherhood of man, and prevent the founding of the great republic composed of many nations and all people. The idea of universal brotherhood, which was a cardinal doctrine of the ancient mysteries, as it is involved in the first postulate of the secret doctrine, and openly declared in the third, and 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 which is equally given the very first rank in true Masonry, is the logical deduction from our idea of divinity and the essential nature and meaning of Christos. In mystic Masonry, this idea of the universal brotherhood of man is one of the supreme law and cardinal principle. Before the candidate can start out in even the first degree of mystic Oriental Masonry, he must subscribe to the rule of the universal brotherhood. And this is not a dead letter, for the secret code will see to it, and that he not only obligates, excuse me, to treat all other members of the order as brothers, but that he will do it. There is no exception to this rule. All alike must obey it or pay the natural penalty. There can be no exception to this rule. Brother for brother and not brother against brother. We live or die together. Okay, so I wanted to read that because I remember watching Rosewood, and in the movie Rosewood, a white guy came up. Let me see, where is it? Came up to the white guy that actually beat the white woman up. It wasn't a black guy. The white guy that had done that, um, he came up to a black brother and showed him his ring. And then the black brother was obligated to help him. And then who got in trouble as a result? Okay, so I want to go to a certain section of this because I don't want to play the whole video. Get out of here. I think it was at 4. Let's see about where it's at. Okay, so it's back here. Okay, so here it is. Fanny Lover asks James, "Are you a traveling man?" Recognize that he shows him his ring. So when he said, "Are you a traveling man?" that means, "Are you a Mason?" And refused to help because Fanny Lover was white, accusing that. Okay, so you see that this young black boy was shown the Masonic ring by the white guy, and then felt obligated to help the white guy. Okay, because they're looking for a black guy right now. And if he helped this white guy get away, then they're gonna keep on looking for a black guy. And he did help the man, and what happened? They massacred the town of Rosewood because this white woman said that she was raped by a big black guy, and it was a big white guy instead. Okay, so one of the things that I that's connected to this is, like, HBCU has been around for a long time. Why have they not taught us the Black history prior to 1860s? What the HBC, and I've been trying to figure out what they teach. Um, this was the first HBCU, Cheney University, 1837. Okay, that's a nice big old school, built in 1837 when we couldn't make bricks. But it wasn't built in 1837, of course. Okay, so let's see, is that the beginning of it? So, what is the impact of HBCUs on American history and culture? Okay, we know what their impact is on culture. Okay, but what about history? So, what do they teach in the historically black colleges about black history? They teach um, slavery and the civil rights movement and the fight for equality and such and such. That's what they teach. They didn't teach us about none of these black Masonic people, and everybody that graduates from these HBCUs are a part of this organization, the Masonic Order. So let's read this. Let's read a little bit. Historically, black colleges and universities have played a foundational role in shaping the African American community and American society. They have played a pivotal role in the civil rights movement and ongoing contribution to social justice. So that's what they do. They teach how to um, continue to fight for social justice, force ourselves into their schools, force ourselves into their neighborhoods, make them treat us. We could have just stayed in our own neighborhoods and our own schools and been just fine. This article affirms the enduring importance of HBCUs in providing educational opportunities and shaping America's social and cultural landscape because we're still fighting. So it ain't do no good. Finally, the current state and future outlook of HBCUs are explored, including their role in promoting diversity and preparing future generations of leaders. Okay, an HBCU is defined as a historically black college or university established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of black Americans. Historically black colleges and universities were created in response to segregated societies. We're going to skip that because that ain't true. In order to retain status as an HBCU, these colleges and universities must be accredited. Okay. In 2022, there were 99 HBCUs located in 19 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. One of the 99 the HBCUs, 50 were public institutions and 49 were private nonprofit institutions. So all of this information is coming out. A lot of the people attending the HBCUs, they are a descendant from the people who had slaves. And I'm talking about back then, I'm not talking about now, because now everybody is going to HBCUs, even people that are not black. And so, but they are the ones that should have been educating us on true black history. But instead, we got slavery, segregation, and the civil rights movement. That's what we're taught about. That's what people are being taught about. How to fight that, how to, force yourselves into, let's go into their neighborhoods. Let's go. I don't want to go anywhere where you don't want me. I'm not spending my money in any store that don't like me. I will go to another store. You ain't got nothing up in there that I want that bad that I'm gonna let you treat me bad and I'm gonna spend my money there. Absolutely not. I'll make my own before I let you mistreat me and give you my money. Sorry, my husband told me I get too worked up, that I need to calm down and stay calm and don't get too worked up when I do my videos. But I think that's a part of being people, being human, being men and women, right? We don't we don't use a monotone voice, and just stay the same the whole time like an AI would, never really fluctuating or going up and down. I'm gonna You're gonna know how I feel based off of the way I'm speaking. So anyway, it says the significance expansion of HBCUs occurred after the Civil War, particularly during Reconstruction, when the formerly enslaved people urgent need for education became a societal priority. Anyway, so everybody that's prominent that was supposed to have been educating us, showing us how to get out of this situation, they all graduated there. Yep, Oprah. Everybody that's prominently black in America graduated from HBCU. Yet they chose not to educate us on black history in America. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So, in order for, in order to keep the Negro under the spell, these people had to keep the story right. So these other black people had to continue to play along. They would have had to participate in covering the former history of all blacks in America. These schools have been around since the 1830s, maybe earlier, because universities are not a new thing that came with European colonists. There were universities in Egypt, Judah, Rome. Ancient Moors had libraries and universities. So why are they only teaching about slavery and the civil rights movement and those connected to both, like the leaders of the civil rights movement and segregation and stuff like that? Um, Most of these civil rights leaders were Prince Hall Freemasons of the highest degree. They would have had to agree to omit their own history as uh, black colonial Americans in order to achieve the lie of black American history. Can you imagine how many black prominent families that have lost homes, businesses, and freedom after the Civil War because of this long-standing lie that all blacks in America are African slaves? Rosewood is a good example of that because you had if this black Mason boy had not helped this white Mason, maybe Rosewood wouldn't have been destroyed. I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe not. The information about black Americans from the past is covered for a very long time. Why? Because they couldn't keep the Negro in America's identity covered if the truth was told. Nobody would know that Negroes in America are the indigenous American if they tell the truth. So they don't want anybody to know that. That's what I meant to say. They don't want anybody to know that. And so we keep on creating stories to cover up the original story, which is why Benjamin Banneker was not allowed to be a part of the original or told that he was a part of the original founding fathers, a 33-degree Scottish Rite Freemason. Anyway, so I believe Benjamin Banneker is Prince Hall. Just saying. Just saying. Because we don't see no pictures of Prince Hall with the Masonic regalia. I mean, yeah, the apron, but I'm talking about the real stuff, the real craftsman stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Please like, share, and subscribe. And leave me a comment. Thank you. Have a good day.